What's that?
So it was a drone?
Yeah, it was definitely a drone. I just couldn't tell you, I could not give you its dimensions as it was moving too sketchy for us to really kind of, it was, I assure you it was not a quadricopter, and it's the most advanced drone that we've dealt with over the last decade here. Its abilities were pretty incredible. I can't tell you exactly its size.
Yeah, so if it wasn't a quadcopter, you think it's one of them like Predator type stuff?
Well, it's not Predator size, right? It's not aircraft size. From what I could tell just from its position light, I would have to imagine it was, larger than a quadricopter. And I guarantee you it's nothing like a quadricopter for how long it's been up. And it has to be satellite driven because there's no line of sight. There's no cell phone coverage that could have dealt with that. So it has to be satellite driven, which is pretty freaking sophisticated.
That's what was amazing for us. We watched you guys go up to Mount Lemmon, up above 12,000.
Right.
And then from Mount Lemmon to Marana.
Yeah, exactly.
And you started at Keno Hospital. I was like, there's no way somebody, some trailer somewhere.
Right. No, yeah, and it has to be, like I said, no quadricopters have that kind of iPhone ability. You can't be controlling that off an iPhone. Not only that, he was watching us. The way he was cutting back across right over the top of us, trying to do a half orbit, trying to prevent us from kind of following him.
Yeah.
So it's. I was really hoping and praying that he would run out of juice, and our plan was we were going to land and grab it before somebody missed it or before something happened to it, because I really wanted to see what kind of technology that was, but we're going to miss it tonight, I think.
All right, well, thanks for the help, and we'll let management know so they can be prepared for your call tomorrow.
Hey, thanks so much. Thanks again, Miguel. You guys did great work. Thanks for opening up the frequency for us. That was a big help.
Yeah, Chris, appreciate you coming over. Anytime we'll get help.
All right, man. You guys be safe.
All right, peace.
Bye.
The world's largest association of aerospace and aeronautical engineers joined the call for a scientific inquiry of UAP's pilot encounters, the need for more data, and a UAP collision safety session at the annual AIAA conference. Since the Department of Defense, the DoD, released the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force preliminary findings in June of this year, more scientifically oriented groups like NASA and the Harvard University professor-led Galileo project have joined the effort to explain encounters with unidentified aerial objects increasingly reported by both military and civilian pilots. Now, the world's largest association of aeronautical and aerospace engineers, called the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, known as the AIAA, boasts an active membership nearing 30,000 scientifically trained aerospace industry specialists, has joined that same push, marking a potential watershed moment in the search for answers to the UAP question. However, unlike the DoD, which is studying these events for threat identification purposes, or NASA and the Galileo project, who are both looking into the issue for scientific reasons, the August 6, 2021 panel that took place during the AIAA's annual convention had a much more prosaic concern in mind: crew and passenger safety. Former U.S. Navy pilot Ryan Graves, a speaker at the event, said, quote, "We need everyone's help on this, and we just do it in a way that is transparent. Because at the end of the day, like I said, very pragmatically, we're flying around objects out there at hundreds of miles an hour with people's families on board. It's just a matter of time, frankly, before we have a collision. I'm surprised it hasn't happened already." Ryan was one of the 6 panelists to speak at the safety session and is now a well-known first-hand witness to the UAP phenomenon. The panel included top aviation leaders alongside Ryan Graves, including Dr. Ravi Kaparapu, a NASA Goddard Space Flight Center scientist, Dr. Kevin Nunth, an associate professor of physics at the State University of New York in Albany, Peter Reilly, an electrical engineer and board director of the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, Ted Rowe, the Director of Research at the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena, and Felipe Elleris, a veteran project controller for the European Space Agency. Mr. Ed Stanton, a chair of the AIAA's Air Traffic Management Integration Committee, monitored what would turn out to be a nearly 5-hour session. Throughout the session, a number of reoccurring themes emerged, with each one highlighted by each and every speaker. They were: 1. UAPs are real and a legitimate safety issue. 2. The stigma around this subject still exists, but that is starting to change. 3. Without more and better data, there can be no progress. But since the release of the DoD's UAPTF report, the call for better data has never been stronger and was repeatedly emphasized throughout the AIAA's UAP safety session, with each and every scientist and presenter practically begging for more data to analyze. 4. Scientists are the ones who need to rise to this challenge. 5, and finally emphasized repeatedly by Ryan Graves, was the fact that this is an ongoing situation with very real risks. During the session conclusion, after the individual sessions, several clear recommendations were established for implementation. To find out what those conclusions were, and many more details about this pioneering and groundbreaking new move to give much more serious attention to understanding of the UAP phenomenon and the possible ongoing threat to commercial, private, and military aviation,
you, Lou, I know I only have a few minutes with you that you have to run, but I got to tell you, that is the biggest struggle for all of us. And that's why I wanted you on the show, because I really feel that not only are we battling a bureaucracy, but we're battling a system that's trying to silence people that are trying to get the truth out, people that are standing up for liberty and freedom, and people that are just trying to get the truth out in order to protect us. You brought up a very important fact. And before I go, I want to give you an opportunity to say whatever you need to say, but I also want you to address this. There are other nations that are highly hyper focused on finding out what is going on in the skies. This is very serious, folks. This isn't something that Lou and I are just making up. They are very serious about it. And can you talk a little bit about what some of those nations, who some of those nations are?
Yeah,
and what that entails for us.
Yeah, so the news hasn't been broken yet, but I suspect at some point it will, that there are other nations out there, again, some not necessarily friendly to the US, that have not only historically taken this topic seriously, but are putting a lot of resources behind it right now. So, for example, China has announced its 5 continents initiative, where they are trying to create a scientific body to study this topic. Now, that may sound great, except for that they also potentially may control the narrative, right? And when you get to the international stage like the United Nations, I don't believe one country alone should be driving the narrative on any type of conversation, especially if some of those countries may be looking to possibly reverse or engineer or exploit technology for the purposes of weapons development.
Right.
Again, I know to some people may say, well, is that realistic? Well, time will tell. Keep your eyes and ears peeled to the media, because you may be surprised.
I think that's a little bit of a hint, folks out there, for something that might be coming our way. And that's a pretty daunting piece of news,